Some people don't deserve a confrontation. They deserve your absence. That's it. That's the move. In a world where everyone's expected to react, respond, clap back, or explain, what happens when you do none of that? What happens when you disappear from their access without a word, without a scene, without giving them the emotional performance they're fishing for? What happens when you choose silence over drama and boundaries over closure? This isn't about ghosting. This is about growth. About understanding that you don't owe anyone a reaction when they've already shown you they don't deserve your energy. In this video, I'm not going to tell you to set boundaries. You've heard that from me before. I'm going to show you how to own your silence like it's armor. And why cutting someone off quietly is the boldest, loudest, most self-respecting decision you can make. Let's get one thing clear. Silence isn't passive. It's strategic. It's a high-level move that only emotionally mature, self-aware women can pull off without guilt. Because when you finally understand that you don't have to explain yourself to people who disrespect you, manipulate you, or drain you, you stop playing their game entirely. You see, reacting is what they want. Reacting feeds their ego. It validates their impact on you. Whether it's your ex texting you 2 months after disappearing, a toxic friend suddenly being concerned, or a family member guilt-tripping you into another cycle of dysfunction, your reaction is what keeps the cycle alive. But silence kills the game. Because silence says, I see you, I've read the pattern, and I no longer care to participate. Cutting someone off silently isn't cold. It's conscious. It's not emotional avoidance, it's emotional intelligence. You've tried talking. You've tried giving chances. You've explained, forgiven, waited, hoped. But at some point, the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is exit the situation without performance, without a final monologue, without another exhausting attempt to be understood by someone who never really listened. Let's be honest, some people don't want resolution. They want control. And the minute you stop reacting, you take that control back. Now let's make this practical. How do you actually cut someone off silently, without becoming bitter, without spiraling, without second-guessing yourself? First, stop broadcasting your boundaries. You don't need to post about how you're cutting people off. You don't need to make your silence loud. Quiet is the power. Quiet is the shift. You're not announcing, you're exiting. Let them feel the weight of your absence, not your words. Second, remove access, not just emotion. Deleting their number, unfollowing, blocking, muting, these aren't petty acts. They're protective rituals. You're not being dramatic. You're decluttering your emotional space. This isn't about revenge, it's about release. Let go of the illusion that you owe them grace they never gave you. Third, detach with dignity. This is the hard part, not just walking away, but staying away. Not stalking their stories, not rereading old messages, not reopening old wounds by seeking one last talk. The silence only works when it's complete. You don't need their validation to heal. You need distance. You need peace. And here's the truth no one talks about. Cutting someone off silently can be incredibly empowering, but it also comes with grief. Grief for the version of yourself who tolerated too much. Grief for the fantasy you had about who they could have been. But don't mistake that grief for a reason to go back. Let that grief transform you, not trap you. Because every time you choose not to react, not to explain, not to give them another version of your pain, you're reclaiming your narrative. You're writing a new story, one where your energy is sacred, your peace is protected, and your silence speaks for itself. Here's the thing most people don't understand until it's too late. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of power. And when you go silent on someone who's used to having access to your energy, your emotions, your explanations, it shakes them. Hard. Because for the first time, they're not in control of how you feel. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you're hurt, healed, angry, done, or completely indifferent. And that mystery, that unknown, it drives them crazy. You see, when someone is used to you reacting, chasing, explaining, defending, they begin to believe they have emotional leverage over you. Even if it's toxic, even if it's harmful. As long as you're responding, they know they still matter. But silence tells them they don't. And that hits deeper than any argument ever could. Here's why. Silence forces them to sit with themselves. Most people who mistreat others aren't ready to face their own reflection. They stay in control by keeping you reactive. Your responses give them something to push against, to blame, to manipulate. But when you go quiet, when you disengage, suddenly they're left alone with nothing but their own behavior and no one else to pin it on. Now they start wondering, did I mess up? Is she done with me? Is she already moved on? Why isn't she saying anything? You didn't have to say a word, and yet you're all they can think about. That's the psychological reversal. You took the high road, and it's haunting them. Silence disrupts their ego. Some people are addicted to attention. They thrive off your reactions because it reassures them they still have value in your life, even if they're causing pain. They mistake chaos for importance. But when you don't react, when you disappear without the courtesy of closure or conflict, their ego doesn't know what to do with that. Because here's the truth, they expected you to break. They counted on you being emotional. They were betting on your weakness, and instead, you gave them silence. You didn't fall apart. You didn't beg, you didn't explain, you just exited. And that kind of strength, that kind of restraint, it rattles them. It exposes how little power they actually had. Silence puts the mirror back on them. You know what happens when you don't explain your boundaries, don't justify your absence, don't entertain their bait? They start to reflect, even if they never admit it out loud, even if they lash out first, even if they pretend they don't care. Because the brain hates unresolved patterns. It wants a narrative. It wants answers. And when you break the cycle of reaction, they're forced to sit in the discomfort of their own confusion. They replay everything. They reread the last conversation. They try to remember if they crossed a line. And deep down, they know they did. You didn't have to teach them a lesson. Your silence did it for you. Let's pause here and remember. Your silence is not a punishment. It's not revenge. It's protection. You're not withholding to hurt them. You're withdrawing to heal you. Because one of the most powerful things a woman can ever say is nothing at all. Not because she's afraid, not because she's weak, but because she finally understands that her energy is not up for negotiation. Your calm is unsettling to people who are addicted to chaos. Your non-reaction is frustrating to those who thrive on manipulation. And your silence? It's a mirror. One they weren't ready to look into. But now they have no choice. There's a moment that no one really talks about. It's that split second after you decide you're done, truly done. Not angry, not bitter, just finished. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it changes everything. You don't need to announce it. You don't need a final fight, a last speech, or a dramatic exit. You just choose yourself. Quietly, fully, finally. And in that decision, something shifts. You're no longer trying to fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. You're no longer explaining your worth to someone who couldn't see it. You're no longer negotiating your standards in the name of love. You're walking away, not just from them, but from the version of you that settled for fragments. That version of you who tried harder than she should have, who held on longer than she had to, who silenced herself to keep the peace. And now you're choosing real peace. The kind that doesn't come with anxiety, second-guessing, or emotional hangovers. The kind that isn't earned through suffering, but protected through boundaries. That's your transformation. Because the truth is, cutting someone off silently isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't need closure from chaos. It's about realizing that walking away isn't loss, it's alignment. It's about learning that not everyone deserves front row seats to your healing, your growth, or your glow up. Here's what happens when you do it right. You create space for what's meant for you. When you stop chasing after people who take you for granted, you start attracting people who value you from the start. Your energy shifts, your standards elevate, your intuition sharpens. You no longer accept crumbs when you know you deserve the whole damn table. Silence isn't just about cutting them off. It's about cutting through the noise inside you, the doubt, the fear, the hope that maybe this time it'll be different. You clear space, and in that space, you grow, you reclaim your narrative. They don't get to define who you are anymore, not by how they treated you, not by what they misunderstood about you, not by the way they tried to twist the story, because when you stop reacting, you stop giving them editing rights to your story. You take the pen back, and in your silence, you start writing a chapter that doesn't include people who never read you properly in the first place. You start attracting with intention. Energy doesn't lie. When you start operating from a place of peace, clarity, and self-respect, it radiates. People feel it. The right ones gravitate toward it, and the wrong ones, they fall away, confused, uncomfortable, uninvited. That's how transformation works. You don't chase it, you become it. And it begins the moment you stop explaining yourself and start honoring yourself. So here's the truth I want you to remember. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to prove your point to be right. You don't need to react to show you care. Sometimes the loudest statement you can ever make is walking away without saying a single word. Because silence is where your power returns. It's where your self-respect is reborn. And it's where your next level begins. You owe no one an explanation for choosing peace, for choosing to protect your energy, for choosing to cut off access to people who only knew how to take, but never how to pour into you. And if this process feels heavy right now, if walking away feels lonely even though you know it's right, breathe. You're not alone. Thousands of women are making the same brave decision, quietly choosing themselves after being silenced, used, or overlooked. This community, it's built on women like you, strong, soft, self-aware. You may feel alone in the silence, but trust me, you're walking with power and you're walking with us. If this is where you are right now, if you're silently letting go, if you're reclaiming your peace, if you're choosing yourself quietly but powerfully, know this: you are not weak. You are not cruel. You are not overreacting. You are growing. You are healing. And you are finally becoming the version of yourself that doesn't just survive heartbreak, betrayal, and disappointment, but uses them as fuel to rise, evolve, and glow in ways they never saw coming. Let them wonder where you went. Let them sit in the silence they created. You've got places to be, a future to build, a life to live, louder than ever, but on your own terms, silently, powerfully, unapologetically. If this message hit home, you already know what to do. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join a community of women who are choosing peace, healing, and power. And if you've been here before, welcome back. You already know this space is where transformation begins. Let's keep growing together. Before you go, drop a comment below. What's one thing or one person you're finally choosing to walk away from in silence? Your story might be the light someone else needs to find their own strength. Your silence is sacred. Your peace is priceless. And from this moment forward, you don't chase, you don't explain. You simply rise,